Welcome everybody. This is Dr. Terrence Duncan with Mahogany Thoughts, and I got the team, Mr. Terrence Butler and the Queen, Carmel Brown, and her lovely throne. What's going on?
Hello, everyone. Good evening, good evening.
So today is a very important day, but before we, today is a historic day, but prior to us going live.
What's going on, my people? Once again, let's get it.
Cool. It looks like you might have a little delay, Butler. Just a heads up on that one. But before we actually go into the actual show and stuff, we're talking about Queen Carmel's throne, and the throne is more popular than the show itself. So I mean, I have no problem with that. I mean, whatever going to get viewerships and ratings and stuff, I mean, that's great. But I mean, every time she gets on the podcast, I'm hoping that she gets on with the throne. So Queen, thank you for blessing us again with this throne.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
You know what? See, we should have got her a scepter for her birthday.
We should have got her a scepter for her birthday, but you know what? Some birthdays are eternal, right? So, before the conclusion of this season, don't be surprised if she actually does have a scepter. So, we'll find ways to get that in there and stuff. I mean, because it is incredible.
Hey, that's okay with me, guys.
Absolutely. And we have Krista Smith. She's with My COVID's Lending, and I've known Krista and her husband for over 15 years. And she has just launched a very successful B2B lender franchise. And for those who are trying to understand what that is that it's a business-to-business lender franchise. So they're helping businesses try to get commercial lending. Krista, how are you?
I'm doing great today. Thanks for asking.
Absolutely, absolutely. And before we go into the actual show itself, today is a historic day, and I'm a little bit giddy, and I'm still a little bit sad and stuff. I mean, because the reason why we're giddy is because unfortunately somebody had died at the hands of a police officer. Today is the day that George Floyd's verdict, the verdict related to George Floyd's murder happened. All three counts was guilty. It is definitely something where we talk about as far as Black trauma. Last week, I said that I haven't been able to watch any of the trial, and I was actually on the phone with Krista right before they had the verdict. And I mean, just the level of anxiety is just real. And so just to have that extreme set of emotions around like 3:30 Central Time to where we are right now, we definitely want to pay respects to the George Floyd family and for others who have lost their hands to senseless violence, regardless whether it's through law enforcement or on the hands of each other. So there's still so much work to do. I know that that we've had justice today, but there's other cases that do not make Facebook Live. They don't make it through the news media. There's a lot of cases that are silenced, and there's a lot of cases that's swept under the rug. So we still have to maintain our vigilance, as well as hopefully we'll have that day where our children, our children's children are never subjected to the images and the sights that we have seen throughout our lifetimes. One, just quickly around the round table, up to 2 minutes, please. Just your thoughts on the verdict and just what do you think are the next steps moving forward as a people? We'll start off with Queen Carmel.
Well, I guess for me, my thoughts are just that I am pleased that the family gets to rest and they can maybe have a sense of peace now and maybe move towards healing, and in the community as well. And of course, we know this is one case, but hey, you have to celebrate every situation. So anytime there's a win.
Absolutely. Mr. Butler?
Me personally, I'm kind of emotionless about it. And I tell you why. Like, I remember I saw the verdict being read, and I saw these people all over the country that were hugging, some crying, some high-fiving. And I was like, this is almost sad that we have to celebrate actually being seen as human. Like, there was an open and shut case where there was clear video evidence of this man being guilty, but yet we're on pins and needles thinking they might find a way to still find him innocent. Even in 2021, as a people, I guess we were shocked. We were shocked when we actually get fair treatment by the judicial system. So Um, I think it's a step in the right direction, but America has a long way to make it right with Black people. We've been under so much systematic oppression. It's ridiculous. So the fact that he was found guilty is awesome. I'm still waiting to see what the sentence is going to be, but I think they need to do something like open back up the Eric Garner case, which was also open and cut video evidence, but yet that could even make it past the grand jury. So we have a long way to go, but it's a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said, bro. Krista?
Yeah, I would have to say that for me, it was actually pretty emotional. I mean, I know it's sad, right? But I'm going to celebrate this victory today. And it's bittersweet, right? I hate to even say the word victory, right? Because in the end, it's because George Floyd lost his life, right? But I do think we need to recognize that we've seen it time and time again, where even though in our eyes the evidence is clear, it hasn't proved to be clear when it gets in front of that jury or in that courtroom. And there's somehow we were preparing ourselves, right? I know I was certainly preparing myself for just something else. And I think we've had to do that. I mean, I know, yeah, I had to do that with Trayvon Martin. I've had to do that so many times in the past. So I was definitely preparing myself this time. And I am glad. I actually was very emotional about it. It's sad to have emotions when you have to have these types of emotions just to, you know, to be seen as a human being, and for somebody to see that as murder. That part of it is just, it's sad, and we have a long way to go. But we're going to celebrate this victory today.
I definitely agree, and I definitely agree with everybody's thoughts on the panel. And I'm going to throw an ad lib because I think just staring at the screen, Carmel is our resident therapist. She's a licensed therapist, and one of the reasons why Carmel came on the podcast is to be able to speak more about mental health, especially among Black and Brown communities. So I just think it's only appropriate to have a mental health minute. Carmel, I guess, as far as people who are trying to juggle with the conflict of emotions, I think that it's very important from a professional state of mind. How can we manage these emotions as well as moving forward? I mean, like, is it okay to feel happy? Is it okay to feel sad? Is it still okay to feel anger? Or even like Terrence Butler has said, to not really have much emotion at all. So Mental Health Minute, sponsored by Carmel Brown, Queen Carmel Brown, and her lovely throne.
Thank you for the introduction. Well, the first thing I want to say is allow yourself to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. All the whole wide array of emotions that you're having, they're normal. Everyone's process with coping and adjusting is different. And like Krista said, I think a lot of people were just kind of expecting this to go one way or the other and didn't have a whole lot of hope and the end result. And so being able to come down from that, being at that high intensity tension, and that produces stress, and that can throw people's hormones completely out of whack. And when your hormones are imbalanced, that could cause mental health symptoms or worsen mental health symptoms as well. So if you experience a increase in symptoms, make sure that you're talking to a professional. And in general, I have to be honest with you, as a licensed therapist, I'm going to say, see a therapist anyway. If you find that you're experiencing a wide array of emotions surrounding this incident and other incidents, there's been a buildup of tension for quite some time. And so if you're not sleeping well, if you notice changes in your mood, maybe you're a little more on edge, a little agitated, just make sure that you're in tune to what you're feeling. You're honest with yourself with what you're feeling, and you're not trying to suppress it or numb it. And that you talk to people who you believe are supportive. And once again, a mental health professional. Self-care is very important. Make sure you're getting enough rest at night. Make sure you're moving and you're remaining physically active. You're getting a good amount of nutrition for mental and physical well-being. And just once again, just be honest with yourself and allow yourself to go through whatever process you're going through emotionally.
Much appreciated. And like I said, I just thought it was kind of important, and sorry to throw you in the spot like that, Carmel, but yeah, I think a mental health minute, especially on times like this, is very necessary, because there are people who probably, don't know what to do with these emotions, or maybe they don't, they're not going to, profess them on Facebook or any kind of social media, or they may just, groupthink, right? They might actually just kind of play along to the masses of what other people are saying, but they may be feeling something else and stuff. So I really like what you said about seeking therapy. And, like I said, Carmel's a licensed therapist. She's been doing it for a long time. And, sometimes, I bounce things off of her to get my mind right, so definitely much appreciated. And so from a somber note to, back to what the particular podcast is about, we are going to discuss access to capital for Black businesses, or just businesses in general. And so we're going to have a little presentation time. So with that said, the topics for this particular podcast include, we're going to discuss the state of Black entrepreneurship. We will also discuss challenges to access to business and residential capital. We will also discuss requirements for business lending. Some people don't really understand the differences between banks and brokerage situations. Butler, I know that you're a broker, and a lot of people don't understand, okay, well, what does a broker do? So we wanted just to touch base on that real briefly. And we want to understand what's the difference as well as you try to access capital. Got to do the plug. We have 4 books by 2 of us. Carmel has 2 books, Your Exhilarating Life, Creating Family and Career Prosperity. She also has a book about nutrition called Nurture Your Body, which is Nurture Your Body, Overcoming and Preventing Obesity. I have a book on personal development and self-motivation called The 4 Fits of Holistic Growth, as well as another book on leadership called The 4 Fits of Dynamic Leadership. And I am down to the last 10 pages. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. On my 3rd book, The Mahogany Legacy Project, which is where this podcast stems from. Building Black wealth. Black-owned businesses rely more on personal assets or credit. And some of this information actually came directly from my book, and I just provided it for this particular presentation. Lack of home ownership equals difficulties of drawing equity. Some businesses, they use their homes, their equity, their appreciation to be able to draw down to obtain funding for business credit. And normally, if they manage their affairs right, that one-time draw from your equity could be the last time that you ever have to come money out of pocket. It's not guaranteed, but it's not uncommon to use homeowners or your home equity line of credit to obtain business funding. 58% of Black-owned businesses are at high risk of financial distress, compared to 27% of white-owned businesses. And only 5% of Black-owned businesses have business equity. And for those who are not sure what business equity is, it is where your assets exceeds your liabilities. So if you have $100,000 in assets and you only owe $30,000 in debt, your net worth is $70,000. And if you convert it to a business sense, that would be $70,000 in business equity. So just think about it. For all the Black businesses that we see on social media and everybody doing what they're doing, which is great, only 5% of those businesses have business equity. There are challenges to overcome together. And just wanted to point this out and stuff just to kind of see, don't want to be more, woe is me, the sky's falling, but just kind of highlight some of the challenges that we have that we need to try to overcome them together. Where 70% of Black businesses use cash from friends, family, or personal use. So they may use their savings account or their checking account or their actual credit card. 75% of Black businesses are uninsured and underinsured. And Butler, I would love to kind of get some feedback from you on what you're seeing out in the field. And despite being the fastest growing group, Black women businesses receive less than 0.2% of capital funding, which is really distressing and really alarming. And less than 4% of Black-owned businesses have more than 4 full-time employees. I wanted to stress that because of the fact that while we are creating businesses, we're mostly creating businesses for our own individual benefit or our family benefit. But what we have to understand is that if we're going to be able to rebuild neighborhoods and rebuild communities, we have to be able to start creating businesses that we're employing people full time so they can have access to benefits. They have access to benefits. That means that they can start improving the likelihood of them to invest for retirement, as well as having access to better healthcare benefits, which could give them better healthcare quality outcomes. Brokers versus banks, we talked about it real briefly, but I just wanted to outline that. banks are limited to only products and services that they offer. So if you go to First National Bank or Regions Bank or US Bank, they're only going to offer, more likely they're going to offer you the product and services that is unique to their portfolio. Whereas a broker, they act as an intermediary who actually does business with different lenders, which can give the actual applicant more options. So in my particular situation, I'm doing a deal with my Cobus Lending with Krista, where I was being vetted to different lenders. So it wasn't just, okay, I'm with Regions, I'm going to Regions, but because of my relationship with her as a professional business-to-business relationship, she was able to help identify different lenders to help me get the access to capital that I need to move forward on one of my projects. Brokers tend to be more helpful than banks in securing access to capital for startups and minority businesses. And a lot of it is just because, again, like I said, it's about relationships, right? So just to be able to have somebody to say, okay, here's your situation. Let me see what I can get based on your criteria. And they can be a little bit more upfront with you and stuff, because they know that if you fit a particular profile, then they're more likely to be able to help you with the particular type of whether it be insurance or access to capital. And our guest, a formal introduction, she's the founder of Mycova's Commercial Lending, based out of Atlanta, Georgia. Her name is Krista Smith, and she is the founder and owner. She has 10 plus years in senior underwriting experience. She is from St. Louis. And her contact information for those who are not able to see the video is ksmith@mycovas, mykovas.com. And without further ado, time to get the show on the road.
Hey, Terrence, wow, that was a great introduction. And you did such a good job defining everything and explaining some of the differences with regard to lending that, I'm pretty much just give my website address and call it a day, right? Because that was great.
We can shut the podcast down at 7:43.
Yeah, he's famous. He's famous for the presentations.
Nah, I appreciate it. Much love.
The mad scientist is always very thorough with the slideshows.
Mad scientist, that's what's up. Carmel, you was trying to say something. I saw you talking, but it was muted. I'm sorry. Oh no, I can't hear her, but I can see the chair. I
Muted.
No, she's not muted. It's just all of a sudden her sound went away. Carmel?
Yeah, I had my AirPods in, and I guess that somehow knocked my audio out. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. What was you saying? I'm sorry.
No, I just said nobody does an introduction like Dr. Duncan.
Oh, stop. Oh, I got a line of 420. But I appreciate it. Thank you guys. But we're a team. So and we lift each other up, and the feedback, and like I said, I just love working with them and stuff. So we're definitely moving in a great direction and have a bright future. So we all do this together. So definitely appreciate the love and support. So Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
Let's talk about your business, Mycova's Lending. What led you to get into this particular venture, and the outlook for how do you think that it relates for African-American businesses?
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me again. I was a little bit under the weather today, so I apologize. My voice is still a little bit hoarse from that. But I have been looking into getting into commercial lending for about 8 years now. It seems like such a long time, right? And somebody should have told me, kicked me in the butt and told me to do it a long time ago. Just go ahead and jump in and do it, right? But I've been looking at it for 8 years. So I've been an underwriter since I want to say 2007. Underwriting commercial risk, I should go back even further. I grew up in a house with a mother who was an entrepreneur even before I knew what that word meant, right? So she was blazing the path in St. Louis, writing her own rule book. She owned daycare. She owned multiple daycares, the first 24-hour daycare in St. Louis County. So there weren't even rules yet, right? So that was kind of the start of that mentoring process. In my professional career, I'm an underwriter. Like I said, I started in claims and moved into underwriting from claims. underwriting commercial businesses, looking at their financials, trying to identify where their risk or where any gaps might be for them. So I've been doing that, like I said, since 2007, and I thought it would marry really well into commercial lending, right? Because we're looking to see, what is it about that business? Why should the lenders lend to that business? What is it about them? And one of the things that I like to do is try to think outside the box. I do that in insurance. I do it with lending, right? So a lot of times if we go to a bank, and banks are great. I think a bank is a great place. Grants are great. A grant would be, the first step. We talked about, family. Sometimes if you can get investments from family, that's not a bad thing, right? Well, let's put a contract down. You're going to invest in my business. Those are good starts, I feel like. I also feel like that I got off track, but I also feel like, so banks are a good start, but sometimes a bank is a box, right? And so we don't all fit in the box at the bank. And one of the examples that I like to use is one that most people are familiar with, and that's when you go to buy a car. So when you go to buy a car, a lot of times you may or you may not take your own financing, right? So I like to take my own financing. I've done it twice in purchasing a car, right? Because what I don't like, my first car, you get there and somebody comes in and it's the big deal. You're there all day in negotiating not only the price of the car, but the price, the payment amount, right? So you're trying to get that financing. And I bought my first car. My dad was there, and they told me that I was the first person they had seen cry right there in the dealership, right? You're buying a new car, but I was in tears when I looked at the payment, right? So I was like, there's no way on my $9 an hour job, which I thought was awesome, was I going to be able to pay this $375 payment for this Nissan Sentra. That's what it was. So I thought, no way. And I was just like bawling. And I think the payment, even before they got it to $375, I think it was even more than that. And it just blew my mind. So in later years now, I take kind of my own financing with me, right? So it's very easy. I go to, not a plug, but it's the truth, go to Capital One, say, hey, I've done a loan with you in the past. What do you think it's worth to you now, right? And so I like to take it with me because it alleviates some of those issues. You're able to terms that are better for me, right? So, and that's kind of what we did, right? In the deal that you talked about with you. So that's kind of how we look at it, right? So yes, if you qualify for traditional financing, you want me to stop? Is that the stop signal?
Not really. Yeah, no, I was just.
I don't know.
No.
So if you qualify for traditional financing, if you fit in the box, that is absolutely great, right? Because a lot of times you can get your interest rate could be lower if you're qualifying for the bigger bank financing. Sometimes it won't be, and sometimes it may not be what fits your needs. I think that's important too. We've certainly seen clients where when we've talked to them, we would have maybe structured it or sent their deal in for something different, right? So an individual came to me for financing after though he had gotten financing from someone else because he was doing a rehab project, right? So he got the financing, but it didn't include anything for the rehab. That's part of when I'm talking to an individual, I'm looking to see what that situation is. What are your plans in the future, right? So we're having the conversation, not just about, how much money do you want and how fast do you need it? What are you intending to use it for? And what is the long-term goal for you in this process, right? Because when I look at that, I'm thinking, why then, if I were doing that today, I would have submitted that with that with the construction included, right? I would have tried to get with a lender who could also include the construction, maybe even at 100%, because now he's tying up credit cards and trying to do the rehab, the work that needs to be done to it. When it could, and he just got financing, right, for the property itself. So just trying to look at it, outside of the box, right? To say, okay, so not just price, not just rate, but what do you need it for? Like, what are the terms? What are the conditions? And then trying to explain that, going through that with the client to see what's going to best fit their needs.
Cool. I had, just thinking about what you were saying about, relationships and banking and, like I said, use Capital One, I bank with Regions and USAA. It makes me think about Butler. And Butler, I know that you're a broker, and it sounds like that, for those who are, still trying to understand how this all works and stuff, what you guys do are pretty much related. Is that correct? I mean, not really like as far as like, okay, I get
as far as having multiple options for your clients, it's definitely the same thing. It's just limiting I'm doing insurance, but it's definitely the same concept.
Absolutely. And just for the both of you guys, I mean, you guys, okay, so example, like I have life insurance with Butler, I'm working on a commercial loan with my co-host lender with Krista. And so what is it that you guys, look for, or actually when somebody comes to you and they're asking, hey, I would like to get a life insurance, or if I'm looking for a commercial loan, just real briefly and stuff. I mean, what are the first steps to kind of really help those who may feel a little bit uneasy and uncomfortable? How are you guys able to kind of help calm some of their fears or concerns about the entire process? Butler, I'll start off with you, and then we'll go to Krista.
Repeat your question, I'm sorry.
So I was saying that if you're running, so let's say that I send you a prospective clients, and I'm always, recommending you guys, as often as possible. And let's say that somebody who's never had life insurance before outside of work, or even is trying to get a commercial loan, like with my co-host lending, it's like, what are the first things, what are the first approach that you do as a broker to kind of help, make sure that they feel comfortable, before you go to the next step as far as getting their profile?
Well, when it comes to life insurance, just basically get some information from them, find out that if they have a family, if so, do they have children, and then I ask them why do they want life insurance, and most people just say I want something to bury me, and I try to educate them on that it's just more than just burial insurance. You want to be able to pay off debts. You want to be able to replace your income. If you have children, you want to set up a financial legacy for your family if you can. So trying to have those conversations, talk about how much debt they have. Do they want to leave money for a student loan? And if it's a husband and wife, I'll ask them, if your husband wasn't to come home tomorrow night, what kind of things would you want to have taken care of? Because unfortunately, we live in a society where life can change in a snap, and you're not prepared for it. So trying to get it to be an emotional conversation so they can kind of feel, okay, if he's not here, if his income stops, if I have to take on another job, if I have to pull the kids out of private school, whatever school they're in, just trying to get the wheels turning so they can see either probably how underinsured they actually are, just to put them on the right path. Because sometimes they can't afford to do the whole thing. So, hey, well, let's just do half of it, and then we'll get together another 6 to 9 months, see if things better for you financially, where you can purchase more life insurance. Just keep the conversation going that way. But yeah, just basically just going through their background, find out what their needs, wants, interests are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Conversation.
And Krista, just briefly, what is your approach as far as like, I know that we both have been in the insurance industry for God knows how long. We used to work in the same building down in Clayton and stuff. So I know, insurance is a whole different, animal in itself, but dealing with, like prospective clients and stuff. I mean, what is your first step in trying to, especially let's say that somebody's watching this for the first time and they say, hey, I want to try to get access to business capital. I mean, what is the first thing that you try to educate your prospective clients before you get deep into the process. And then I have a question for Carmel after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the first things is that, one of the reasons of my why was for people to feel comfortable, right? So I think as an individual, and I know you and I have talked about this even with regard to a home loan, right? And so going to get a home loan, and sometimes it can be intimidating when you're talking to people. And I remember even when going to get this home loan, which was not that long ago, and the first individual that we talked to, they basically, I was dismissed basically, no, and then go on. And what's really important is to understand sometimes why it was a no. And so the next person I saw, actually a broker online, similar to my COBIS, and I basically said, what could it hurt, right? This person doesn't know me. I can ask this person questions, right? And the person actually, his name was Eric, and he made me feel really comfortable. And I think that is what I'm trying to do for my clients, right? So you don't have to be embarrassed, right? I'm from St. Louis. I have made groceries out of $6. So, there's nothing that you can tell me that I'm going to hit the floor, right? Let's just have an open and honest conversation about what it is that you're looking for. What are you trying to do? How soon are you trying to do it? Because those are the different options when we're looking at lending. And especially for commercial, sometimes this is also one of the differences between sometimes banks and brokering, is that a lot of times the banks are looking at your personal credit more heavily than maybe alternative financing. And when I say banks, it's not to say that my COBIS doesn't have banks in our arsenal of lenders as well. We do certainly have banks because we work with SBA to provide SBA loans. So we do certainly have banks within our arsenal of lenders as well. But a lot of times, in the loans that we're talking about getting for individuals looking to get into a franchise or looking for a larger amount, that's kind of what I'm talking about there. And so sometimes it's just why the no, just trying to make sure that they're comfortable and understand, we can talk it through. And if it doesn't work this time, because they're not all going to work, everybody doesn't qualify right now. At least let's have the conversation. Again, we're not financial advisors or financial consultants. We're not that. But certainly we do have partners that are out there to help find grants, help work with you on your credit via personal or business. Other partners to try to help you, financial advisors to try to help you if that's the help you need. That's not us. We're not those things. But certainly we try to have partners that would be available to help.
Absolutely. Thank you for the explanation. And Butler, I just think it's really important stuff, because I know that, again, I know people probably, they never met us personally or know our backstory. They probably say, oh, okay, well, you got a doctor, you got 2 brokers, and you have a therapist and stuff. But we all had a journey, and it wasn't easy I think all of us can agree that it wasn't easy. Carmel, I know that you are a business coach and a mentor as well. I know that you've had experience doing that, and I know that you've helped people kind of get their business off the ground and stuff. I mean, from your particular perspective, and then obviously we're going to respect the confidentiality of your clients and stuff, what are some of the challenges that you saw for some of the businesses that you were coaching? I mean, were they like startups, and did they have problems with funding, or, what do you saw as far as, some of the challenges or hurdles that they had to overcome, based on your expertise?
Sure. Well, most of the individuals or business owners that I've helped out have been therapists. And so, with that, there's not a whole lot that they're requesting with regards to funding. So, it's private practice. So it's a, for-profit business. So I haven't seen a whole lot of the people that I've worked with try to pursue funding. However, there has been a couple, and mostly those were startups, and it was small amounts of money. And for most people, it's their personal credit history. That tends to be a roadblock or a challenge. But some people are having really good luck with lending and funding, especially for first-time business owners.
So shameless plug, it's actually from your book, because you said something and just stuck in my mind and stuff. Your exhilarating life That's the title. I'm going off the
Yes,
top of my memory
yes.
stuff. And
No, but-
I read the whole book. So
Good.
it kind of made me think about, like what you had said, to the effect of overcoming, mental roadblocks. So, based on your expertise and, from your book and whatnot, what do you recommend for people who might they've done all the research, but they just, that trigger of either fear or paralysis of the unknown, how they're able to overcome that to be able to move forward. What do you recommend on that from your expertise?
Well, it's actually very common for people that want to start a business, or maybe they just did, and just having the courage to just jump out there. And so, I do see a lot of fear with people that I've worked with, and I've had some people with great business ideas and something, a product or a service that would go over well, but they've been sitting on it for long periods of time. And I still have people now that I work with one-on-one that have that particular scenario, but just sitting on that idea, not launching it due to that fear. But one of the things that I would recommend, I'm always going to recommend therapy as a therapist.
Oh, yeah.
Going and seeing someone that can help you figure out what dysfunctional or negative or unhealthy thoughts you might be having that's perpetuating that fear, that worry, and that anxiety, so that you can really tap into what your internal and emotional experience is as it relates to your business, as it relates to your future, and just work on developing the self-esteem and the confidence and the courage that you need to move forward. Because I always say this: fear and worry is somewhat normal, but when it's in excess and it's preventing you from moving forward in a major area of your life, then seeking professional help is certainly helpful.
Absolutely.
Terrence, if I could add to that too, I mean, I would say too, a business plan, right? To put that plan in place. There are a lot of apps, or even on your Word, you can get the outline for a business plan to start writing it down. And it's going, I feel like it's almost therapeutic as well, just in writing that goal down, in writing down what it is you see. And it takes you kind of from the beginning to the end. And not to say that you have to stick with it, right? Because it's meant to put it in place, and then sometimes you might have to change it up. But also, when you're looking at certain types of financing, they're going to want to see that business plan. And great, you've already started, right? A good start, because you have that plan, and it's easier to put that plan in action once you kind of have written it down, you have outlined it, you have determined what you want it to be. And so I would suggest definitely a business plan.
I love that, Krista.
Yes.
I always, and Terrence, if you've read my book, you know that I have a pretty good chunk in there about writing it down, writing the plan, and writing the vision and making it plain.
And I'm
And
following
it's
it.
just, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said I'm following it.
Yeah, absolutely. If I always say, if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen, and it's not going to happen. So writing everything down is critical in succeeding in any area of life. But I totally agree with what Krista just said. Writing it down is critical. It's key. And more than likely, you are hindering success by not doing so.
Yeah, and the thing about it too is Butler and Queen Carmel, hey, look, if you ever see me shucking a job and I'm taking too long, make sure you still push me and stuff and ask me, where I'm at and stuff, because, I have to admit and stuff. I mean, yeah, I've done a lot of cool things so far and whatnot, but, the reality is sometimes I do have paralysis, fear and stuff. Sometimes, I do have those doubts and stuff. It's like I told them, I'll be honest and stuff. It's like a couple of times, it's like, I don't feel like doing this no more, and it wasn't because I didn't think it was going to work, but it was just one of those things like, is it working yet? And so, being able to, it's one thing to conceptualize it, you have it written down, you say, okay, I have these project dates, but, if you just stick with it. And Butler, you told me something the other day too and stuff that really, really stuck with me about, it's not about what's happening today, it's what you do for tomorrow, and finding your why, right? So it really means a lot, and for those who are listening, or for those who may be struggling with their business or may not have the success that you're thinking that you're having stuff. The reality is, like I said, 5% of Black-owned businesses have equity, meaning that they have more money than they have liabilities. That means that 95% of the people that are on Facebook are stunting, and I mean, and it's all part of advertising and whatnot and stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the reality is stuff, there's a lot of people that's, that's on social media and stuff, they're doing it for marketing and stuff, but don't let that be the reason to stop you from continuing to do what you have to do. So I think those are very valid points. Krista, just as far as the, like you said, let's talk about the rejection real quick, and then we'll have the panel ask questions as well. Let's say that, business A comes to you, has a 703 credit score, but their debt to equity ratio is very high and stuff. And let's say that you can't identify a lender at a particular time. What would you tell that particular business as far as like a particular action plan to help them get ready for the next time through?
So they have a 703, but what is it? They don't have enough equity?
Let's just say that, on paper they had some good things and stuff, but they're almost like at that 50-50 line. Like you can do an eyeball test and say we can try, but in the back of your mind that it may not be a go for that particular business. What would you advise that particular business, if they didn't get the funding that they was looking for, and to try to, I guess, repair their situation to be viable again, about not giving up, basically?
Right. So there's two things. One thing is just to piggyback off of the prior topic that we were talking about with the business plan and the goal setting. I would say one of the other tips that I would utilize with that is to update your partners, even if your partner is just yourself. So sometimes after you're setting that business plan up and you're saying, okay, these are the next steps that I need to take, right? So I need to these are the next steps that I need to take. I need to get my phone number. I need to set up my email. I need to do whatever. And then, so you're writing out, these are the next steps we're going to take, and then email it, even if the partner is yourself, to you, right? And then in a month, go back. Did you complete the steps that you said you were going to do? You completed them. What are your next steps? And maybe a month is too long, depends on what your time frame or your process is. So your partners, it could be your husband, it could be your actual partners, it could be yourself. You're emailing it, and then you're able to also I lost my words, but celebrate. You're also able to celebrate what you've accomplished so far, right? I did these things, right? I still need to do these other things. Let me write down what I want to accomplish in the next 2 weeks, in the next 3 weeks or whatever, but I did do these things. And so that's one thing, just keeping yourself organized for your next steps. This is where you want to be. So how are we going to get there? And sometimes if you have that fat list of 100 things, it can be overwhelming. Let me pick out the top 10 things. I'm going to do these 10 things by this date. Then when we check in at that date, what did you do? Maybe you did 8 out of the 10 things. Let's celebrate these 8 things, add those 2 plus 8, 10 more things by this date. And then email that, and then continue to do that. And then pretty soon, before you know it, you've accomplished and completed all of those tasks. The other thing, I think you brought it up in the beginning about business credit. So one is setting your business up properly, right? So sometimes it's a business, but we haven't really set it up as a business yet, right? So it starts as a hobby and maybe it's moved into a business. So you want to set it up correctly. You want to get that FEIN number so that you can. So step 1, set it up properly. Step 2, you want to get that FEIN number. Step 3, you want to get a bank account, a business bank account. So that was step 3. Step 4, you want to establish business credit, right? So if you've got that, I say Bank of America, but if you've got that Bank of America credit card, then you want to use it, right, for your supplies, for your not fax machine. Lord help me, it's 1970. You don't want to use it for your printer and your copier, for your laptop. You want to use it and pay it off, right? And then you want to monitor it like you do your personal credit. You want to monitor your business credit. At my Covis, we have different lenders. They're looking at different things. Some of them are looking at credit score. Some of them are looking at equity. Some of them are just asset. We have all types. And even before the no, there is you could do it. There's a you could do it section between yes, okay, you could do it, and no. And you could do it is really hard. I, again, have done you could do it before because sometimes you need you could do it. You wouldn't necessarily want to do it under the best circumstances, get that loan with that high interest rate. But I've certainly been in a position where I've felt like I needed to do it, right? I needed to do that. So there's the you could do it stage, and then there's no. And so no, I would say, okay, let's just look at where you want to be. And why was the no, right? What were we looking at? If it wasn't credit score, was it years in business? If it was, years in business, that's just time, right? So we just need you to do well, but they need to see it over a longer period of time. There's just all types of avenues, depending on what the situation is, and what your goal is, right? Because everybody's goal is not the same. So it's going to be a different situation depending. And my thing would just be okay, so once we've identified where you want to be, let's try to figure out your individual way that you're going to get there.
Absolutely. Well, we are in our 10-minute warning, and so that gives us an opportunity for our panel to ask the questions of our guest. And before we close the show out, and we'll start off with Queen Carmel and her lovely throne. God, I love it. You know what? If they had a king's throne, I don't even know what I would get. Butler, what would you put on your king's throne?
I probably have a crown sitting on one arm.
Yeah.
I never wear the crown. I just have it sitting there, and I would definitely have some kind of strobe light going. I have some lighting going behind the throne too, and probably like every 15 minutes you probably hear like trumpets blow. Yeah, I would have a lot of fun with it.
King to be.
That's right, Krista.
King your first self. That's what I'm talking about.
Hey, Dr. Duncan.
We're all fixated with that chair. I mean, it's dope.
Well, thank you. Well, there's only one thing missing, and that would be a Mahogany Thoughts logo right there.
We're working on it. You'll be up there by season 4, that's for sure. Yeah, this dope. So,
I need like a little decal.
Yeah, we need to get decals and stuff. We're gonna get some shirts and we're gonna get mugs and everything. You think we're playing with this and stuff is going to happen. So, because
right.
I know that my team, they're going to continue pushing me. We're going to continue to push each other. So much appreciated. But that chair, though, I mean, if you're on a podcast and you're not rocking that throne, we're gonna have to hit the pause button.
Yeah. I told you I'm gonna have to get some theme music at some point.
Absolutely. And as long as we are able to get it on Spotify and YouTube and stuff without getting in trouble, we'll find a way to get around it. But sure. Go ahead, Your Highness, Your Grace.
I don't have any questions for Krista. This has been really good information. And, I think she's really covered everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You did a great job.
Thank you for being here.
You guys.
Well, I have a couple of questions.
Oh, watch out now. I'm ready.
Okay. So is there any way to get a loan? I guess it would depend how long your business has been in existence. Without having to do any personal guarantees, do you do loans just based off of your business credit?
Correct. Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yes. And sometimes just based off of depending if it's a real estate, it could be just based off of the collateral, the property itself. It could be just based off something else. It doesn't have to be your personal. We don't want it to be, right? But sometimes that's what it is. I mean, if the liquidity that you're showing is from your personal account, then you're personally the guarantor for that. But if the business is standing on its own and it has its own liquidity, right? So that's what we want. We want eventually for you and the business to be separate, right? That's a lot of times why you set it up the way you do, is because you want it to be separate. So it just depends on the individual circumstances.
Gotcha. Okay. So just to give you my example, I've been in business about 8 years or so. And my business right now is completely debt free, which is awesome, in my opinion. But I think if I'd had established business credit sooner, that I could have expanded faster.
Okay.
So now I'm in a position to where I want to look to do more expansion, but I haven't established any business credit per se.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I've been funding my business, started out with family, friends, and then also personal savings. And then I use personal credit cards and personal loans to do things like that. But now I'm in a position where I want to do business credit. So what's the best way to start establishing business credit so I'm no longer using my personal anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say the best way is like what we talked about is, I'm sure you already have your bank account, but to get a something that is reporting into the business credit agency, right? So whether that's a credit card or something that looks like that, so that's reporting in. We do have some of those. We do have some of those options depending on your criteria. We do have some credit card options for businesses and so forth. The other thing that I would look at though, in talking to you, and we can certainly talk offline, is how you're paid with your business, right? Because there are situations where depending on how you're paid or how your income stream is coming in, you could actually get money or financing or loans based on that income that's coming in as opposed to an income that's somewhere else. So we could certainly talk about that depending on, it depends on your situation and how it's coming in.
Okay. Last question. Do you also do like commercial real estate, like either like standalone like shopping plazas or like multifamily units and things like that?
Absolutely. Yep, definitely.
So what's the normal loan to value on those that you look at?
Right. So the pandemic happened, and I've been told that a lot of times now it's 70%, but we've certainly seen 80% as well, right?
So it's 70 to 80%.
And that's only because of I think because of the pandemic that it was at 70, because mostly it's 80, but the pandemic happened and you've got some lenders that are still really shy, right, about what, lending and what capacity that they're out there. So it really just depends. And it also depends on, the situation. Like when we shopped for Dr. Duncan's loan, we sent it out there. We don't send his information out to those lenders. We send kind of the shell, right? This is what it is. So they don't have his name or anything at that point, to see kind of what's out there in the market. And I can tell you that it varies, right, by lender, what's out there. And then we kind of say, okay, these are the top two, and we take them to Dr. Duncan, and Dr. Duncan says, okay, this is what we want. We don't always do that. If we know right off the bat, okay, this is going to be the fit, right? That happens sometimes. And we certainly don't want to waste our lenders' times, right? Like their time. But post-pandemic, it is that variance right now. So that's one of the reasons that in that situation, we kind of took it out to the multiple markets to see where we were going to land. And some of them did want, a little bit more, lower the interest rate, right? So we talked about that. The interest rate comes down, the more skin in the game you have.
Yeah, we definitely need to talk more offline. I got a couple of projects in mind that I'm looking at. So yeah, we can definitely have a conversation at another time, have more in-depth questions or whatnot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and actually, it'll be good for you guys both to connect too and stuff, because and Krista, he's the brother I was talking about, that has his insurance brokerage business. So he definitely helps businesses get business insurance as well. So it's more than just life insurance. So it's like kind of what we talked about offline before going on live. I do want to say about my personal situation, I'm not going to go into details about what I'm doing, but my COVIS was very helpful. So I did have a business credit card. I just was able to get a business credit card maybe several weeks before I reached out to them. The particular project that I was working on, I definitely needed commercial lending. And so I had to use, either cash or, use equity, excuse me, from the property that I have. But, with the understanding of doing the homework and the research and stuff that, if things do work out the way it's supposed to, it'll probably more likely be the last time I have to use equity for my home or cash. But from my personal experience, I'm gonna keep it short. It was kind of nerve wracking. I know that, we had a lot of conversations in between time. There was, I did not really understand how commercial lending worked and for certain interest rates. One thing that I discovered was that, commercial lending interest rates are going to be higher than residential interest rates or regular personal interest rates. And that's just because, they understand that, everybody's here to make a profit. But on the commercial side, there's a lot of ways that people can get out of those situations, whether it be from bankruptcy or selling another property or whatever the case may be. And so that people, like for residential, you're not going to be locked in for 30 years for a property. Most of the time you might hold it for 5. And so they have to protect their interests to make sure that they have money. And so it was a really enlightening process that I'm going through. And like I said, hopefully we'll still be on this particular project that I'm working on. But, I did tell them stuff that I do look forward to working with them more. And we're going to joke about this experience. We're not going to go into those details, but we're going to joke about my lack of knowledge. And we're going to celebrate as we continue to make money together. So I think that was a great question, Butler. And, like I'm telling everybody and stuff, it's not as, this is not as easy as people think it is. But it's, the purpose of this particular podcast, the whole entire podcast, is just to help connect people to resources, right? And so by doing so, we're able to help another family, whether it's their mental health or whether it's their financial situation, whether you get life insurance, whether they go to a particular college for a cheaper tuition than another school, or just even when it deals with, discussions on social justice and stuff. We just want to be able to provide an outlet and a connectivity for people to feel comfortable where they say, hey, you know what? I know these people, or I look like these people, and they actually went through these experiences, or they're, openly discussing, some of the insecurities or challenges that they may have, which is the reason why they haven't reached out to my COVIS or even DFG Global, or, if they're struggling with something at home, why they're not reaching out to Queen Carmel, so for mental health services or her associates. And so very good questions. And, that's basically, it for the particular show. Krista, we definitely appreciate you having you on the show. I've learned a lot more information on this podcast on top of what we talked about offline, but very grateful indeed. And hopefully that people can go back to this video and, and use that to be able to connect with all our services. And I made an intentional point to underscore the skill sets that Carmel has, the skill set that Butler has, as well as myself, and as well as our guests. And I think that's very important to reemphasize the stuff that we do. We are trying to move towards Black excellence in business sustainability and success. So closing comments, we'll go around table. Queen Carmel, we'll start off with you.
I just want to say thanks to Krista for joining us today. Once again, this has been great information. We appreciate it.
Likewise, definitely thanks for your time. And like I said previously, we'll definitely be in touch soon. So I got a couple of irons in the fire. I definitely need to pick your brain on, and hopefully we can establish the business relationship going forward. So we'll be in touch.
Absolutely. Krista, any closing thoughts?
I just want to say thank you guys again for having me on. And this was my very first podcast, so I did fumble a bit. I hope I didn't talk too much, Dr. Duncan. Sorry.
You're fine.
You were the guest of honor.
You seem very comfortable. I couldn't tell.
Yeah, Krista, we might have gotten in trouble if it were us, but you're the guest of honor, so you could go as long as you wanted to.
But it's funny though. Everybody does get that. I need to find a better way to tell people. It's like, if I do this, that means you got one more minute. Like wrap up the time. But it's funny because every time I do that, people's like, "Oh, you want me to stop?" I'm like, "No, keep going." So it's a work in progress. It's a 20-second show. You know, when we get to show 200, we're going to have this thing line and step. Everybody's going to know all the cues and stuff, but I have to get better because, you know, one time I did like that stuff and Carmen was like, whoop, and I was like, no, I want you to keep going. But it was, it's on me, you know, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I stopped mid-sentence.
You did, actually. I was like, and I felt so bad. I texted, I was like, Carmen, trust me, I was not upset. Like, I'm sorry. She was like, no, we're good. I was like, are you sure? So yeah, I have to get better with that. Yeah, you know, we're still, so don't feel bad about fumbling stuff. Doing a podcast, I'm gonna say just like this before we close. People have to understand it's one thing to do your own live video when you're doing it with a team and you're trying to do something, you're trying to grow something magnificent. It's a growing process, you know, and it's fun, but at the same time, you always kind of go back to like, dang, did I say this right? Or, you know, maybe I talked too long or whatever case may be. Just, you know, I tell people, be in your space, you know, so much appreciated, most definitely. So with that said, on 420 day, for those who do partake in 420, enjoy legally in the states of Illinois, Nevada, California, New York, and other states and stuff. And if you're going to do it illegally and stuff, that's on you. And disclaimer, I'm not endorsing that. But thank you again for listening to Mahogany Thoughts on this day, a historic day. We still have a lot more. Still have a lot more to go as far as our push for equality and justice. And you know, like I said at the top of the show, I do pray that that when my kids are of age, that they don't have to see Rodney King, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Philando Castile, Ahmaud Arbery, and the list goes on, unfortunately. And even though that, you know, justice was served in this particular moment, you know, there's still work that we have to do as a community, as well as we have to do as a nation. So with that said, thank you, everybody. God bless. And we are out.
Thank you.
Peace.